for taking this amazing step. I know everyone that's watching right now is watching the replay. Thank you so much for checking this out. We're so excited that you have decided you want to learn more about how you can find freedom with food and with finance. I'm joined by the one and only amazing Malik Turley. She's going to be talking about the food side of things because she's awesome with that, and I'm going to try to keep up with her with talking about the finance side of things.
Because
Malik,
you're awesome at that.
I try to be. Malik, tell us a little bit about why you're so passionate about food.
Yeah, I am passionate about food, but really about the policing of it. So my big focus is on dismantling diet culture. I feel like we have gotten to a point in the world with a little bit of a focus on the US because that's where I've spent most of my time, where diet culture has done so much damage to so many people and so many structures too and systems that we need to knock it down. We need to break it down. So that's what I've dedicated my life to at this point, is making that change happen.
Yeah, I love it. And when you mentioned systems and breaking them down, that just makes me so excited about breaking down some of the financial systems that are out there. And a lot of it comes down to the marketing and who's getting the biggest voices marketing wise. And we know you got to sell your thing, you got to market, but how you market is super important, and how that makes people feel, what it does to their mindset, all of those kind of things. So we're going to dig into lots of juicy things related to that here. Um, Maybe take us back, Malik. I love a little bit of so uh, when I first met you, I was like, yeah, diet culture, whatever, doesn't impact me. And yet, some of the things that you've shared with me have really helped me realize actually it's everywhere. And even if I don't feel it all the time, it is impacting me, and it's impacting people I really love and care about, probably in different ways, and things like that. So, take us back. When did you first realize that this diet culture thing existed? And like maybe you didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, it was your first experience with diet
Right.
culture.
I actually have a concrete moment. I didn't have the words diet culture at this moment, but I had been living my life like being me, just doing stuff, and I ran into a health issue. I was dancing. Dancing is really important to me, and I was starting to have pain in my feet, and more importantly, my knees. And if I go back farther in time, I had had knee surgery when I was in eighth grade. So knees were always an iffy spot. So I was having pain. I went to a physical therapist and was told what so many people are told. And I took it in at the time, but I would have a different conversation with them now. I was told that I had two choices. I could lose weight or I could have surgery again. And I was like, well, I don't want to have surgery again. So okay, if those are my two options, I'm gonna do the thing. And I did, and I changed a lot of things in my life and whatever. Uh, on the other side of that, I'm talking to someone else, and they said that we were in a conversation, and they said something about um, their weight and their experience of themselves, like feeling like a good person or not, was tied directly to their weight. And I and I remember like stopping and going, those are two different things. But for this person, they were one and the same. And I don't know how I hadn't been given that message that they were the same, because that's what diet culture tells you. I somehow missed that. To me, they were two separate things. So I felt very confident and strong about myself. And I knew that I had body image issues, but those were in two different buckets for me. And it wasn't until this one person was shocked that I had them in separate buckets that I realized that for most people they are the same. And then I got mad and I started working on, bringing into the classes that I taught and the conversations I had, this idea that those are two separate things, And that is what led me down the road of learning about diet culture and the other harms that it causes. But it started with that conversation.
Okay. So I need to talk a little bit more about this 2 different buckets thing. Okay. So bucket 1, I'm confident, I am powerful, I am myself. This is me. Bucket number 2, this is my body.
Bucket number two is how you feel about your body,
Okay.
your self image. You look in
Mhm.
the mirror and you say, some people look in the mirror and they say, "I am amazing and attractive, and I own the world." And some people look in the mirror and say, "I am not amazing. I'm not attractive. I don't like this, that, or the other about whatever the things are."
Yeah.
They have their own little dialogue when they look in the mirror. That's your body image,
Okay.
which is not necessarily the same as your self image,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
But for many people, it is the same.
Okay, okay. So, it's kind of like going to my money
Yeah,
side of things. It's kind of like people they're high achievers, they're super successful, they do really great at everything that they put their minds to. And yet when it comes to looking at money, pulling up a bank account, starting to play around with things, they're lost. They're like, "Well, I'm not a numbers person." Like and that sometimes then undermines the high achieving, success oriented. It can, almost drag them down. So similar kinda thing.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. And I'm like, are you talking about me? Are you?
No, 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 no.
Um,
Me. Sometimes, right?
Mm, right, and that we have these. I feel as though these two buckets are separate. Um, if we look at them separately, we can work with them differently than if it's all wrapped together. Like in your money example, if I decided that because I'm not a money person, that means that I can never succeed at anything ever, so I might as well just sit down and give up because I'm not a numbers person, so I'm never ever going to um, I'm not going to speak up at a meeting where I think I have an idea about how to do X, Y, or Z. I'm not going to um, even look at where my money is going or how I'm spending or anything because like whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm not a numbers person. I'm just not. That's what happens, and that's what diet culture tells us should happen when we look at our body, like what we see in the mirror and who we are as people. Diet culture says, "Oh, if you don't look like this, you might as well just sit down because there's really no point for you to be here. You have no place in the world. You're not worthy." And I take extreme exception to that idea, much like I'm sure you take extreme exception to it on the money side.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, like, it would kinda be like the woman trying to be a dancer doesn't fit into the dancing
Mhm.
stereotype body image wise, and so they just give up and try something else when that's their real passion. Same with somebody wants to be financially wealthy, but they give up because they're not a numbers person, and there's like, I'll be fine where I'm at. Okay, so that's what kind of diet culture and what I like to call budget culture, thanks for helping me come with that term, like to tell us. How do we get what I wanna spend the rest of our time talking about is how do we get freedom from that? Like, what does that look like? And what I'm sensing already is to divide the 2, to get our self-worth from something other than the the physical realm or the monetary realm, that we are humans, we're worthy. We can't hear that enough. We need to know that.
Right. We need to. it- it's I would say it's less about separating and more about integrating,
Mm,
right? In that if I know that I just by being here, just by waking up in the morning, I have value. I have value if I woke up in the morning and I weighed 400 pounds. I have value if I woke up in the morning and I weighed 90 pounds. I have value. I'm sitting here with a sprained ankle. I still have value, even though I'm not in a position to go for a run or to do a jumping jack. That value doesn't go away. I don't love so we're not going to talk at all about how we look because we are walking around in these containers and we bring them everywhere we go. And in a lot of situations, they are the first thing that people encounter of us. Less so now with everything online, but still. Um, and if we don't see value in this container, regardless of what it looks like, then we're not going to put ourselves places where we can meet new people or have new experiences. So I I really want my goal is for folks to see the entire picture and see value in the entire picture rather than having to have their container match some manufactured marketing driven nigh on impossible for most people um, idea and therefore shutting down and not operating like they have the value and worth that they
Hmm. Okay, I like it. Very philosophical of you, right? Like
have.
the and is it all about the spirit or the
Right.
brain, right? Like,
Right.
and at the same time, like we exist in bodies, we can't exist without bodies. We're increasingly in a world where we can't exist without money. Right, like, it's almost become like an extension of ourselves, the
Mhm.
numbers within a bank account or, the tangible, touchy-feely
Right.
coins and dollar bills that we have. So such a great comparison there, because it is very true. And I know a lot of how you've, em embraced the ability to find freedom has come from seeing how different cultures, different ways that haven't been touched by this, like, westernized diet culture, embrace the body and, give it full, uh, like, its full position, I
Mhm.
guess, no and in of all different shapes and sizes. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like. It brought in our minds, like, yeah.
Yeah, it is astonishing what damage. This again goes back to what damage diet culture has done, right? Um, if you look at footage or you think about old time stuff. Um, Back when the US hadn't touched every corner of the globe and hadn't infected it a little bit with its ideals, there were all these people in all these places walking around thinking about things other than how much they weighed, right? Like there were places that fashion wasn't really a thing. Like, I mean, adornment is something that every culture seems to have some aspect of, but not in the obsessive way that is present in the U.S. Or even in. I can broaden that out. It's not just the U.S., but other westernized places. Um, uh, their time and energy is spent on things like music and dance and community, like being together and doing all of these things regardless of their container, right? Or think about other cultures where age is valued, right? We don't value age. And part of why we don't value age is because when you're older, you don't look the way you did when you were younger. And that young look is the right look. So now you've lost your value because you don't look like that anymore. Um, but in other parts of the world, even like here where I'm in Spain right now, and um, the the old the older people here are like revered. Like everybody helps them, gets out of their way, like respects them um, in a way that I sure never saw in the US. Nowhere near that. But anyway, ageism is wrapped up in diet culture too. So there are all these other ways that we can exist. And the thing that I think causes some of the most harm is our media, our advertising. There's a lot of money in you feeling bad about yourself. there's not so much money in you feeling good about yourself. So, because the US is so consumer driven and so capitalist, that feeds the flame that much more. I feel like I went on a tangent, but I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, great. So, and by the way, there is a chat, there are comments. We will see them. If you're watching live right now, you can post them. If you're watching the replay, still post them. We'll get back to you. Would love for you to let us know that you're here and ask questions, share feedback. The chat is open um, for those watching. Okay. Um, Back to what you were talking about. So, is it simply just avoid all those negative diet culture messages? Is that all we need to do?
I mean,
I
that's
say that tongue in cheek, right?
yeah, right. Sure, live in a box. If you just live in a box, move to a private island, you'll be fine. It'll be great. We do need to monitor what we're taking in, right? And be mindful of that. Like I don't watch TV, but if you watch TV, being mindful of not only the ads where the marketing and advertising is explicit, but also what's happening on whatever you're watching, what's happening in the show, what's being fed to you, pun intended, that is not serving you. I have to cough. And then we have to look at ourselves and do some of that dismantling work because we feed diet culture also. And so things that come out of our mouths, things that we do, ways in which we interact or judge people before we've had a conversation with them, that's all in there and needs to be dismantled and unpacked. Or
Okay, yes.
unpacked and dismantled in that order. Yeah.
Yeah. How do we do that? So, full disclosure, I hate shopping. I do not wanna go shopping. First time I went into a Costco, I got a migraine. But I was at Costco recently, and I was just really curious. I'm gonna go to the clothes section, never go to the clothes section. I'm gonna look around, and I totally saw the tummy control pants and stuff like that. I was like, "There it is, right there. This is what Malik's talking about." I
Mhm.
I don't typically see it because I just don't engage there, but then once I saw it, what do I do from there? Or, do I just not go into the clothes section anymore? Like, what does this look like? How do we unpack it?
Well, I think first off, recognizing it. Like you see the clothes and you go, "Hey, wait a minute. Why is this all here?" And the weird thing, another tangent. The weird thing about the whole tummy control business, it comes in literally every size. So I'm like, if you're a size 0, what are we controlling? Like what message are we giving that person with their clothing choices? I mean, we're giving them the same message, but like, what are we even doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first thing is recognizing it and going, oh, wait, that's a thing that I don't need and I don't want. Okay. So now I've done that for myself. I have protected myself from that horrible thing. Step two, if you were so inclined, would be to go to the customer service desk or whatever at Costco and say, "Hey, I was in your clothing section and all of the pants are these tummy control things. And I'm wondering why you don't stock non controlled clothing." Or I noticed, regardless of what size you wear, I noticed that your size stops at this. And I'm wondering why you don't carry these sizes. Or I'm noticing that you have 17 aisles of food, like food, diet food, food
Mhm.
that I'm losing the words, but uh, like
Diet food.
appetite suppressant diet food. That's what it's called because that's what it's called. Um, and I'm wondering why. Like, why is so much shelf space being given to this? That if we engage with the shops, the stores, the people who are making this stuff available or choosing what's available, we can start to broaden the scope of what's available. We definitely can act with our dollars and not put money behind those brands or those things that are promoting this unhealthy, um, and I, well, health is a whole nother conversation, but this unhealthy uh, view of what it means to walk around in this world. And we can have conversations with the people around us about these same things. And I mean not so much the you did a thing and you did it wrong conversation, but more of the oh my gosh, I went to Costco and did you know that all that they had was this? Just to start the conversation. Because most people don't don't even see where diet culture is impacting their day, right? You're talking about going to Costco and you're getting to that point. Well, where else in your day did diet culture show up? Probably 17, 20 other places, but you didn't necessarily notice because you've been steeped in it. And so it's just normal. And that's part of the problem, that it's just normal.
Yeah. Yeah. I think of this whenever I'm talking to somebody who there are only there are some financial institutions that will only work with them if they have X dollars. It's
Yes.
usually something like $500,000, right? And
Yes.
they think, "I'm not worthy, I can't," or "I can't let my account balance dip below that because then I can't work." And I'm like, are you sure you wanna be working with these people? If that's their measure and they're not willing to help people, to give them the same financial advice and wisdom that they're giving you because they have less, or that they'll only consider you worthy of their attention if you have X, right? Same thing with the sizes that they stock or what they have available in terms of clothing or in terms of the offerings at the grocery store of the food that's there.
Yeah. That
Same
makes me
same
think
thing.
of the complaint that I see regularly from people in big bodies that are active because fun fact, I've got this weird lighting thing. You can be in a big body and be active all at the same time. It's physically possible. Um, but workout clothes are often some of the worst for being so narrow in their size range. And it's like, well, I I need these clothes, or I want these clothes. I don't really need them, but I want these clothes in order to work out, and I don't have access to them. And the narrative of diet culture is everybody should be working out, and they should be working out to make less of themselves. But then we're not going to give you access to the things that you need in order to work out, in order to make less of yourself. And I'm not saying you should work out to make less of yourself, but I'm here for the working out. Why do you have a treadmill that is rated that stops? You can only be on it if you're under 200 pounds. Who who invented that? Who designed that? Couldn't you have done something to make it possible for someone who's 500 pounds to be on the treadmill? Wouldn't that be safer for like everybody? You know. But when you are going to shop for those clothes and you find out that you don't even get to buy them, that's not exactly the most motivational moment for you,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
um I have so had that, like, you have to have $1 million to come and talk to me, and it just makes me go, well, if I could talk to you, maybe I could get to $1 million with my, starting with my 10, but if I don't even get to have the conversation, like, how great are you at money management if you can only help people who have $1 million? Wouldn't I see you as a better money manager if you can help me right now and
Mm.
move forward? So
Yeah. Yeah. Amen. Love it. Uh, so, okay, I know you've got more that you wanna share, and I might not be asking the right questions to get it out of you, so I'm just gonna open the door. What else did you have in mind that brings people freedom from this thing called diet culture?
a big thing, and I think this would tie in well with the money side too, is the idea of restriction.
Mm.
So much is done and talked about and promoted and implied about restricting food, restricting, whether it's intermittent fasting, restricting when you eat, whether it's, I'm just gonna eat grapefruit for a month or whatever, restricting what you eat. I'm having a hard time with my
The sun's going down out
the
there in
sun is
Spain.
coming down. It's 5:25 where I am. What time is it where you are?
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
But this idea of restriction does a lot of harm, and part of it is like medical harm. Our bodies are meant
Yeah.
to eat a wide variety of things. Part of it is the amount of time and energy it takes to manage that restriction, and what else aren't we doing? Right? Like I could cure cancer, or I can count my calories. But I don't really have time to do both, so I'm gonna let that cancer thing go, and I'm gonna focus on what? Um, and the restriction also limits us in what? Like it defines good food or bad food, or healthy food or unhealthy food, and that is a slippery slope and a dangerous pathway to go down that is seen as normal. Like of course you're cutting fill in the blank. Of course you're cutting carbs, you're cutting protein. Whatever. It doesn't matter what the thing is. Um, that idea of restriction, and I feel like that's something that comes up in money too. And I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah. Yeah, the biggest example is the latte factor. The if you just make coffee at home instead of buying it out at a coffee shop, which as a former coffee shop owner, a coffee lover, wanting to support the local independent places, I take really big issue with that. Because if you really do the math, you can't restrict your way to wealth. You can only cut so much. You have to, have a place to live. You have to wear clothes, and that's just the way the world works now, right? And so, like, you're never going to get wealthy just by cutting back. You've got to take some money and put it to work in different ways. And there's all kinds of creative ways to get wealthy, but it's not only about restriction. And what too many people do, like they could cure cancer, but they're counting calories, is they budget so much and they focus on the restriction so much that they miss the opportunity to start the business, to have the side hustle, to learn more about this different way of doing money that could totally get uninterrupted compound interest working in their favor and all those beautiful things. And so thank you. I'm going to totally use that example again. Do you want to cure cancer or do you want to count calories?
I mean, it is one of the parts of diet culture I think that is the most insidious, in that at its root, the people who are most impacted by diet culture are women and people from already marginalized communities and or people. And a lot of that comes down to power and control of who's not in those categories. Let's do the math. Generally speaking, we're talking about white men, but there's some flex there. Um, and it's um, that power and control works if we don't think of ourselves as strong and powerful beings. If we're so distracted by what we're wearing, how we look, how much we weigh, what calories we ate, what food we ate, where are we shopping, who's buying, who's watching what we're doing. If I'm so taken up by all of this, what else am I not doing? Bottom line, if I'm hungry and I'm at a meeting and I haven't eaten because I'm intermittent fasting, so I ate yesterday and I have to punish myself to not eat until tomorrow or whatever, I'm not going to be thinking at my strongest in that meeting. And when you bring up that issue and I'm like, wait, I thought I had a problem with that, but I just really wish I had a cookie. I'm not going to interrupt that meeting or speak, whatever. So that idea of our power and impact being limited because we are so pushed into thinking and worrying about this other category of stuff that does not need worrying about. I'm sorry. Siri wanted to be a part of the
Yep.
conversation.
She's
It
welcome.
doesn't need worrying about how much impact could we have?
Yeah.
Like what could we be doing?
Yeah.
So
Okay. And I have to tell people that I know something they could be doing. If they're done, counting the calories, worrying about X, Y, and Z, getting on the scale every morning, all those things, you've got this amazing community called the Tapas movement
yes.
where they can find things like this 5-minute morning of checking in. It starts actually with just 1 minute of checking in with themselves, seeing how their body feels, choosing how they wanna move forward with the day in their bodies. Little, and so I full disclosure, I've totally done some, like, personal training with Malik, and I had to describe to my husband that it's not the personal training that he's used to, and it was very much more of this self-driven, taking your own power, building your own confidence kind of thing. And I think Malik, you bring that into all the parts of your community from the little like posts, that fun Fridays, to the actual like snack classes you're starting to offer, all those kind of things. And how much better of a use of our time to do those kind of things and to be part of a community of people that are choosing that path forward. Did I do a pretty good job of explaining what that is? Anything
You
you'd
did
add?
great. I carry
Okay.
you around with me everywhere I go to say, "Oh, I could tell you about it, but go talk to Amanda. She's got it."
So yes, love that. Rather than standing on the scale, what if you just stood on the floor or started moving and you see how your body feels and you decide how you're going to approach your day from there? Similarly, why not stop counting every penny? I mean, if that brings you joy, keep doing it, right? But most of the time that doesn't bring people joy. I'm maybe the anomaly. I love updating my little budgeting software on the regular. But I've found so much more joy and feedback and improvement and confidence building from something I've started calling financial centering, where it's more meditative, more, uh, I'm looking at these numbers, but let me step back from them and see how are they making me feel? What is my mind and my heart? How do they get aligned with what these numbers are doing? Much more valuable work to be doing, right? Than just moving numbers around on a spreadsheet.
Right. Well, and the other thing that you do, so I also am in Amanda's community, and that is all about, I would say, changing your relationship with money. And like, I personally don't have a goal of being a millionaire. That's never been something on my list, but I want to have enough. And I think, Amanda, you're the first person who has anything money related next to your name that like accepts the idea of enough, and not you always need to have more, you need to want more, more, more. But anyway, in one of the things that I love the most about the community with you is the check-ins, the things that we come in together twice a month, and we sit down, and the sheet that you have, it's your still method, and I don't know how much of that is out in the world, but basically the idea of, before you look at a number at all, like the first few things that we do are about, okay, what do you want, where do you want to get, where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 1 year? What are you doing now, or what will you do now to lead you down that? All of these things, well before we're looking at a number. Now, I am also one of those people. I like my budget. I really do. But the other thing I was going to say is, budgeting with you is more about um, like knowing where the money is going rather than limiting where the money is going. And I think that that shift, I love knowing what I'm eating. I'm definitely aware of what I'm putting in my body. I'm not judging it and I'm not restricting it. I'm interacting with it. That's it. I'm
Yeah.
interacting with it like
Yeah.
we interact with our money.
Yeah. And there's a very big difference between judging and restricting and
Mhm,
awareness and interaction.
mhm,
Awareness and interaction can be very positive. It might not feel positive at first. I was teasing you a little bit before. I just started a book that is resonating with me so well. It's called Good Anxiety. And it's written by this doctor, psychologist, at one of the big universities or whatever. But she talks about how, like, we have this fight flight response to things, but when we carry that throughout our whole day, that's a negative type of anxiety. But if we can turn that initial anxiety into something positive, then it can totally transform us. Kim, thank you so much. She just said Good Anxiety is a great book. I am, like, devouring it. It's so good. I'm excited about it. And I also started so that's my, like, bedtime reading. I also started a book called Grit by I think it's Amy Duckworth. That's also, like, blowing my mind. I'm reading it on Audible while I'm moving my body. Um, so anyway, back to what I was talking about, like, part of what we're inviting people into is a little anxious for them, right? It can feel weird to, um move my body in X, Y, or Z way, or to think about what does financial independence really mean to me? If I were to paint that picture, what would it look like? That can fit Angela Duckworth, thank you. um, Kim's correcting, it's not Amy, it's Angela. Um, and I adore you too, Kim. So that can feel anxious at first, but transforming that into a positive, that
mhm.
that anxiety is actually the way to move forward. Can you speak into that? What does that feel like in what you invite people to do?
Yeah, I'm still chewing on that title. I've worked so hard on anxiety in my world that I'm like, anxiety is a good thing. Wait, what? But I understand what you're saying, and or what that author is saying too. I think that anytime you're taking something that is so systemic and pushing back on it, that can feel really unsettling. And it also is asking you to examine yourself in a way that maybe you're not as used to doing or as comfortable doing, because again, we're steeped in it. We've been, if you think of it like tea, we have the darkest tea ever because it's everywhere, this whatever. So that is a little uncomfortable and yet super valuable. Also, the moving of our bodies has been so linked to getting smaller and so linked to getting more right that it's a little bit unsettling to just be like, wait, you want me to move just because it feels good? Well, I don't even know what that means, right? Like what feels good? I move because they made me do it in gym class, or I move because whatever. It depends on how old you are, right? Jane Fonda told me to do it, right? I and I'm asking folks to tap into no. What does your body want? Does your body want to go for a run? Then let's do that. Does your body want to stretch out on the mat and be at peace with it for a minute? Let's do that, or something in between. All of it's valid, and none of it is to change your container um, because of these outside forces. Another thing that I think makes people anxious or uncomfortable with the dismantling of diet culture is the idea that there are people who want to weigh less. Like, for whatever reason, they want to weigh less. And when I talk about dismantling diet culture, it can sound like I'm saying you're a bad person for wanting to weigh less. And that's not at all what's at play. I understand there are very few health things that are like where that's the only the root problem. Um, but we've been told that they are because the doctors lead with that, like the example that I shared at the beginning. Um, and it's okay to have those thoughts and feelings when you are also examining those thoughts and feelings. You get to have them and work on them at the same time. But just like there's no good or bad food, there's no good or bad people. You're all wonderful, you know. And we need to acknowledge what is around us and what is leading us to have those ideas.
Yep. Yep. Um, let me add that second part. I just have to relate to money here
Yeah.
because I grew up with a father that thought all rich people were bad people. And he, grew up during the Depression. He had his own story. It was his story to tell. But I personally met a lot of rich people that I didn't think were very bad people as I got older. And I had to wrestle with that and think about, well, do I want to be rich? Like I'm totally fine with enough, but if I were rich, what would that look like? Would I be a bad person? And like that kind of being open and honest to ask those questions of myself and define what rich actually means, right? Like I am rich actually, if you look at the whole world, right? I'm very rich.
Mhm.
And compared to my parents, I have a higher net worth my parents ever had in their entire lives. And I'm just getting started. And if I'm going to go on that journey, I have to forgive myself, right? And give myself permission to do that, but also realize, and if it's all gone away, I'm still gonna be okay with enough too, right? Like, if it doesn't work out. And so I can totally see that with food, right? Like, I'm I'm okay if I'm X or Y, but if I go for Y, that's okay for me. If I go for X, that's okay, and I'm gonna be okay either way, right? Like, but having that internal dialogue rather than having somebody else tell you, "You have to go for Y." Right, love that. Yeah,
Well, and also, like to go with your parental example, so many of the diet culture messages we got from our parents, right?
yeah,
And whether we're still getting them or not, depending on where you are in life. And so some of the work of dismantling is saying like all that stuff that you were told from when you could start remembering anything was wrong is like saying your grown-ups lied to you. And I mean, they did, but they lied to you because they had been lied to, right? Like it's not that they're bad people and they weren't trying to hurt you. And yet we have to acknowledge that, being told to finish all the food on your plate, being having your food policed as a kid. I mean, how many kids I know how what I ate, how much I ate, when I ate was seriously watched and managed as a kid. And that's not um, productive. That is one of the things that can lead to developing eating disorders or disordered eating. Um, was that wrong? That it was done. I mean, I do enough yoga that I'm not too keen on the right and wrong, but was it impactful? Absolutely. Is there a way to be impactful in a different way? You bet. Am I vilifying every person who I talked to from the age of 3 to 41? No.
yep, yep. So good. I have to make sure before we conclude today that we also talk about that the ability to choose what food you eat and how much money you have, or your ability to engage with movement and how much money you have, are often intertwined for folks. And a lot of times I even find myself in the grocery store thinking, well, I can't buy that because I can't afford it.
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Or I can't join this movement activity because I can't afford it.
Mhm.
Or, well, I've got enough money, I can just lay on the couch and do nothing, right? Right? Can go both ways, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, and so I that tension is real.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of what we're talking about here applies when people are feeling that too, right? The whole don't determine your self-worth based on that tension. Um, Ask questions, look for it, become aware without judging or restricting, and kind of press into it and turn it into well, actually, I I can still make a choice, right? And there's gonna be pros and cons to each choice I make, but I have the ability to make that choice. I have the power and the confidence to move into it, and
Right.
I'll I'm going to do that. I'm gonna actually move instead of staying where I'm at,
Yeah.
whatever that looks like. Anything you'd add to what I just shared?
Yeah. The tie with money, like if we are, Kim, you're right. You're always in choice. The choices might be fewer,
Yeah.
though, depending on your resources at hand. And I think one of the things that has become really harmful about wellness culture, which I am, I guess, a part of, but also am not. I'm not trying to be Gwyneth. Okay, am I allowed to say that? Anyway, um, and, is this idea that you know you get to pick what you put on your plate all the time. Okay, but you might not. If you are on WIC or I don't know what food stamps are called now, they keep changing the name, but you aren't 100% in control of what you have available to you. And so you're going to make food choices based on what you have in front of you. Um, if you have a specific amount of money in the bank, you're not able to live wherever you want. You're going to make choices based on what you have, what your resources are, and being being flippant about the impact, specifically with diet culture. If we know that women and other marginalized groups are, and that words are wobbly, are at the most are most impacted by diet culture, and we know that they are in that is a population of people who make less, like per whatever, and have more responsibilities per whatever. They have less time, that is like, do whatever you want with it. um, it's not fair to say, oh, well, you can all devote, 3 hours a day to your physical whatever and doing this, that, or the other. And that's why I'm big on the erasure of the good and bad. There's someone I follow on Instagram, and I will put it in the notes somewhere, who's a dietitian who spends a lot of time talking about, convenience foods are not bad. It is not bad to get something that's convenient. Um, if you're in a food desert, you're not going to have ample fresh fruits and veggies at your disposal on your way home from work or whatever. And so I want to acknowledge that and say that what I am what I am guiding folks towards is not some sort of idyllic, perfect way of being, because I don't think there is one. What I want is for people to see the messages that are coming in that are telling them that they are not worthy, and notice them and notice that that's incorrect, that they have worth no matter what. And I would say for, I feel like the same is true. I am not someone who has a lot of money historically. I have the same kind of like rich people are those people idea. And I really value the work that I've done with you and moving on this path towards having a different relationship with money, and I acknowledge that I have enough. Like, I'm fine. I have a place to live. I have food on my table. Like, I have enough, and that is not true for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I love this kind of start where you are mentality. I still, when I get to the gym in the evening, I still do the thing I feel like I should be doing a little bit, right? I do my run, I do some strength stuff sometimes, not always, and then I do some stretching. But what I've added, what you've helped me add at the end, when I'm doing kind of a shavasana at the end, I try to listen to my body. What's my body telling me it needs right now? Just to lay here and do nothing? Is there something that needs a little stretched a little bit more? How am I feeling about my body image? All those kind of things. And I wouldn't have done that before. So thank you for giving me that. And then maybe that will grow and blossom into actually when I arrive at the gym, I check in with my body and see what does it need to do today and how does that look? Or when I'm sitting down to do my meal plan, right? What is my body telling me it needs right now? Does it need more greens or does it need that brownie or whatever? Like,
yeah.
let's do that. Um, and then we can do that with money too, right? However you're engaging with money, you can say do something at the end. How do I feel about this? What could I what is my kind of brain or my heart telling me could adjust so that I can experience more joy from this? Or even when you sit down, kind of like we do with the still method.
Mhm.
Um, and so we're actually going to be starting a 5-day journey where we do a deep dive into each layer of the still method. It's an acronym STILL, and we'll do one letter of that acronym per day. So we'll start with S and then T, and really invite people to find that heart centering connected with their brain centering to move forward in a positive way. So we invite everybody to check that out and join. It's totally free. We want to get more people thinking along these lines and finding their way forward. Malik, what's your current offer? What do you got going on that people could check out soon?
Yeah, I keep doing plural speak. I run a Zoom session once a month that is all about dismantling diet culture. Our next one is going to be about dismantling dysmorphia. The When you look in the mirror, you don't see what you see, or what the world sees, and that's available or accessible on Eventbrite. And if we can put links in here, I can drop
Yeah.
that in as well. And that's a really great way to just start thinking about this stuff. Just come to it's 1 hour. Come, bring your food because eating on camera is dismantling diet culture. Bring some food and let's do some of that work. Let's talk about how we can change the world. Um, Kim had a question in the chat about uh, hustle culture, another type of diet or budget culture, and I would love more words, Kim, if you have them.
I'm that's making me think of productivity and doing more and working more
Yeah,
hours and that kind of thing.
yeah. Um, I recommend moving out of the U.S. No. I think that bingo. Okay. So yeah, we don't have to. We have worth. We have value. Period. Whether or not we are making money, whether or not we are being productive, you wake up in the morning. You are worthy. You have value, and what you do with your time, what you do with your body, is totally up to you. Um, that would be my thought. Kim, I don't know if that.
I want to make sure we got your upcoming event into the chat there, so people can check that out. Yeah, Kim, totally participate in the chat. Let us know what else you would say. Yeah, so much of us, I think we live by the should do list, rather than the "here's what brings me joy" list. And yeah, there's all kinds of negative mental health things that can happen with being a workaholic right here. Yeah, totally guilty of that. And maybe that's a new place to step into and say, "Okay, I'm changing my story with food and my body. I'm changing my story with money and budgeting. I How do I change my story with, this guy, my bujo, my to-do list? What does that look like,
Right.
with work?" And I know Kim, she's got a her and Louise, her partner, have a great, framework there of redefining work and thinking how we can engage with work in ways that increase our joy and happiness.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Value question every should. Love that.
question every should, and own the power that you have, no matter who you are, no matter what your situation is, there is power in there. And I do not mean to sound Pollyannish. Like, there's a lot of hard and broken in the world that strips us in one way or another of elements of power. And yet there is something, you have power. You just got to find it, and then nurture it to 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 move forward.
I realized our friends on Facebook can't see the YouTube comments, so I'm putting Kim's up there for them to read. The last one. They could go check out the whole, YouTube version of this if you wanna see everything that Kim put in the chat. Um, and the chat's still gonna be open. We're still gonna have, places to comment and share. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for watching and being part of this conversation, from afar and putting your little, tidbits in here too. Love it. Uh, yeah, there's so much we could keep talking about. Malik and I actually join with awesome women like Kim and Rebecca in an amazing organization called Women Belong, where we get together and have these kinds of conversations, lift each other up, support one another in so many ways. So if you're a woman who would love that kind of support, personally, but also professionally, like people that would send you new referrals and clients to work with and stuff, be sure you check out Women Belong. It's Women Belong. Is it .com or .org? I always forget. Yeah, it's .com. I'll put a link to that too.
I think it's that.
Okay. Take us home, Malik. What's your left concluding thought?
My concluding thought is that diet culture is everywhere. The push to restrict is everywhere, and you don't have to listen to it.
Love it. Great. Okay, we'll do the mic drop and we'll catch you next time. Subscribe to Malik's channel and to mine. See ya.